Shabbat Shalom. It's great to be back here after the conference. It was a great weekend. I think we learned a lot. We had there's some really great talks of the weekends, and worship fantastic, and the fellowship, and we have lots of spiritual foods and food. And foods, yes. I mean, one of the things that it captured my attention at the conference was the theme. I didn't know the theme of the conference until I've seen it at the conference. For those who are there, know what the theme was: righteousness and justice. And I think the whole weekend was the theme itself was appropriate for the time we are currently living, because there are lots of injustice around the world, and I think the time was right, and it was good. All the insights, that perspective of God's justice, how much is differ from man's justice, and what is righteousness in God's view, and what's all our purpose. How we fit in with all that. That was great, and lots we learned from that. Not going too much into detail what we talked about in the conference, because I know there's lots of summaries of what we did, but just moving on, what I saw around it is there is a parallel between what we talked about in the conference and this today's parasha. Which we'll look at it in more detail. I mean, starting today's parasha Bechukotai, which is the last parasha from the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. I mean, we can briefly, I'll say maybe double brief, very brief, summarize this parasha. It's very, very simple. And perhaps picking up what Lenke say, the talk or the sermon can be done in just one word. We could actually just end this parasha in a second, because the summary is very straightforward. You have the parasha starts with detailing the blessing of obeying God, and ends with the curse by disobeying God. That's it. We could just stop here and go home, or go upstairs and have fellowship. But I think there's more to it, because when we look at this parasha, when we start going to detail, reading through it, when we read the first 10 verses, describe the general blessing that God will give us or to our people if we obey his commandments. And the very first blessing starts with his promise for seasonable rain in the land, which will produce abundance of fruits, and the time of threshing will extend until the time of sowing seed. Now, if you're a farmer, you understand. When you talk about threshing, you have all the crops, or the cereals, or not cereals, the grain. You have that time to take those, small little grains to put in the silos and so on. That time is short, because once it starts raining, you might lose it. Yeah. But here we basically, God will expand that. There's no time limit. You can keep doing that all year round until the next season you have to plant it again. Perhaps in the West, doesn't really, make much difference, because we don't need to know that. We have supermarkets. Who cares about it? You go to Tesco, ask the Sainsbury, you get what you need. But that was the very first blessing. You can raise why rain. I mean, we have rain here every day. Is it a blessing? But there's more to it. And then we continue to read. I will send you rain. I mean, one of the things it captures is on its season. And the ground will yield its crop, and the trees their fruits. I mean, it rains quite a lot here. But one of the key things is rain at the right time. I mean, even here, right? We are in June. The expectation is we should be seeing sun because, rain is thing of, December, January, November. It's the right season. And going back, if you're farming, you know the importance of having rain at the right time, because having rain at the wrong time can be as bad as not having rain at all. And it's important because, bear in mind, when we look at Israel, look at the land, rain is scarce. And if you have no rain, you have no food. And we need food. And moving on, God also promised to keep God also promised if we keep his commandments, we will live in peace. And we will chase our enemies, and they will fall before us. God will grant us a peace in the lands, which, again, is kind of the timely, that's what we need right now. We need peace. Now, moving a little bit forward on this parasha, there's lots of blessing, and it's very comfortable what we hear from parasha 1 to 10. We can see that the expression of God, what he wants to achieve with all the blessing and encouragements, that if we keep on the right path, he will be amongst us. He will walk with us. He will be our God, and we will be his people. And all we need to do is one thing. So we'll talk about it. Now, I like, it's very, very much. I like to see patterns, kind of a bit of detail. This is one of the things I enjoy doing. Now, when you count, you read the parasha, the whole parasha. When you go through it, you count how many blessings has been listed in. 13. And it ends with what we read so many times in a different parasha. And Exodus, verse 13 is the one that really made me ask the question, why do we need to know that? We know that already. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, so that you will no longer be slaves to the Egyptians. I broke the bars of your yoke and enable you to walk with heads held high. I mean, we read it, we talk about it, we have the Seder, it's all in great detail. But this is where God ends on this parasha, the blessing after all the 13 blessings is stopped. This is it. Again, before we jump to the curses, I stumbled just to sort of, why do we need to be remembered? But in one hand, it's all linked up together, because this parasha is about choice. And we were set free from the Egyptian. We have that freedom, to choose our destination, to choose who to serve. We are free to choose our path, because we're no longer slaves. But further down this parasha, start the curses. And doing all the counts, they're about 28. And again, it's about 13 blessing, verse 28. I mean, it's unbalanced. Why 13 and 28? And as we're reading through the parasha, all the curses tend to get worse and worse and worse. I mean, just to paraphrase a few. But you will not listen to me, and if you don't listen to me and carry out all these commandments, then I will do this to you. I will bring you sudden terror, wasting diseases, and fever that will destroy your sight and sap of your strength. You will sow your seed for nothing because your enemy will eat the crops. I will break your stubborn pride and make the sky above you like iron and the ground beneath you like bronze. I will send wild animals against you, and they will rob you of your children, destroy your cattle, and make you so few in number that your roads will be deserted. Your lands will be laid waste, and your city will lie in ruins. And as those of you are left, I will make their hearts so fearful in the hands of their enemies that the sound of wine-blown leaf will put them to flight, and they will run as through, fleeing from the swords, as they will fall, even though no one is pursuing them. Now, again, when you look at this, the 13 blessing against 28, which, by the looks of it, it looks very unbalanced. But look into it in more detail. What looks at the first sight is like God is there to punish us, to punish the Israelites for disobeying him. But this is completely the opposite. Because although there's more curse than blessing, they were meant just to be a warning. They were there intended to scare, encourage us to choose the wrong path. It's meant to be a deterrence. So we can, and our people in the past could see the light and choose obeying God and follow the powerful righteousness. And then, a few parents, if you have, your kids playing with anything dangerous, or fire or climbing trees, now it's very likely what you'll tell is not to do it, because you're going to, if you're playing with fire, you're going to burn, you're going to go to hospital and so on, and eventually you might die. Now, that is literally a deterrence. We're not trying to say that to punish our kids. And we do it not because, we just have the need to punish the kids, but because we love them and we want them safe. And there are there are studies and things that look into this, how we human beings respond to positive and negative situation. We as a human being, the way our brain is wired, we tend to pay more attention to negative things. Negative thing has a greater impact than positive things. Bad news has more grab our attention than good news. And this is factually true. When you read the newspaper, or you watch TV, or use your news on your smartphone, news is always catastrophe. Is war in Iraq? Is Israel? Is Iran? Is China? The good thing is literally takes 5 minutes. It's you have let's say news slot of hour. For let's say 50 minutes will be all about bad things happening in the world. And after you watch the news, it's just depressed, because what's the point to live? But the reason behind it is because our brain is is in need of that bad news. And the good news take, that slot of 5 minutes. The same thing, you give a praise or positive feedback to a person, and out of 20 positive feedback, you say 1 constructive feedback. Let's call it a negative feedback. When you talk to that person, the whole thing that person will remember the most is that 1 out of 20. And then when we look into this perspective, which is reality, and we understand this, it makes sense, the 13 blessings against 28, because that is what we listen to. Yeah, that's what our brain take more attention and tend to fixate on it and perhaps do what is right to do. And this just showed that although there are curses and perhaps things that no one would like to be, God is not there to punish us. God is set all these regulation commandments to make us think, to make us choose the right path. And we know Judaism is a religion. We have a religion of love, forgiveness, but also a religion of justice. And as I mentioned, the punishment on this parasha is not because God loves punishing, but it's because he wants us to do well. He wants us to choose righteousness. He wants us to obey his mitzvot and regulations. Because we can imagine a society with laws but with no punishment. Will people comply with law if there's no consequence? And if you took a more sort of mundane regulation, the High Court, they are, speed limits across the roads. Are those speed limits there to punish us? They are warning to make sure we drive safely. And we should not obey God out of fear of punishment. As we read the Messianic writing, we should obey him because we love him, because we want to enjoy the relationship he promised in this parasha. He wants to walk amongst us. He wants us to be his people, to serve him with love, gratitude for everything he has done for us. Because he is merciful. And it's his mercy that gives us the faith as Jews to, our individual lives and as a whole have some meaning, some purpose in this life. Because sometimes even when we can't see him, he's still there. When we can't hear him, he's still there, battling, protecting us. And it's that faith, that belief that he wants us to keep, to maintain. To keep that faith, that belief that God is there, whether we see him or not. He's the one, he's the way maker. And he's the one who gives us that courage when we are high or low, when you go through the valley of death, we fear no evil because we know he's there with us. As individuals, that's what gives us the strength that when we fall, we get up again and again. Because, he is there. But when we lose that faith, that belief, that hope, that Adonai is there with us, we lose that strength, that courage, maybe the sense of direction, which path, curse or blessing. And we basically live our life to chance. Well, I'll try to see what happens. But when we chance our lives, we become blind to justice. We become blind to righteousness, which that in itself will distance us from Torah and consequently from God. This parasha very much highlights, the blessing and the curse and the curses. It's not about the punishment. God is the curses are not God's up there to punish us, but it's the consequence of our choices. It's like I mentioned before, you have 15 miles an hour. That sign is not there to punish you. The person who created that regulation is not there to punish you. If you drive more than 50 on a 50 miles an hour speed limits, the punishment that comes along that way is the points in your license or use your license is the consequence of the choice you made. And we know, I'll just bring that because one of the things I heard this week is the anniversary of Big Bang theory. But without going too much detail, we know life is not a mere chance. We all have a purpose. There's a very great reason that God set us free. Because He wants Him to walk with Him. And this is the story that we are part of. This is the question which we are part of the answer. And each of us has a specific and individual purpose and a role to play to make this world be better, bring some light into this world. And there's only one thing that is on the way to that, is that choice, that simple choice. Perhaps, we can say very important choice to make. What do we choose? Blessings or curse? It's fairly black and white, left or right. Just to conclude, it is, I think, that all the warns in this parasha is there to help us to choose what is good, what God's put there in front of us. Because too often we make the wrong choices, perhaps because we don't think the consequences. We tend to think of today, perhaps not of the tomorrow. We make choices that we don't think what might happen, the consequences. We say things that we don't see the consequence of what can cause to other people. We do things that without thinking what make other people feel. And the parasha, when we look at the blessings are very much to a nation, not just to individual. We talk about rain. If you live here, if it's raining, whether you obey God or not, the rain rains for both good and bad. And it is very clear that his society, his nation, when you start losing that moral, spiritual duties, we literally let things to chance. Don't know what might happen next. Let's just try, see what comes out on the other side. But we don't have need for that. Not need for that. And we just live our life on autopilot. Yeah, just keep going and see what will happen next. And we tend, this just lead us to give in to this world's demand. But what today's parasha tells us is, Let's let the righteousness and justice flow in these worlds. Let's stand for what we are. Let's stand with Adonai and choose what is good. Choose blessings. Let's think and choose the roads that will lead us to peace. Shabbat Shalom.